Jai Shriram Jigish garu. I'm just changing the name and it's on Adi's name. I'm really thank you.
Jai Shri Ram. Jai Shri Ram అండి.
Jai Shriram Padma garu.
జై శ్రీరామ్ అండి పాటో గారు.
Jai Shriram Rinalini garu.
Jai Shri Ram.
జై శ్రీరామ్ మృణాలి అమ్రే.
Thank you, Jai Shri Ram Padmore.
ఆల్ ది బెస్ట్.
Thank you. Thank you.
జై శ్రీరామ్ అండి.
జై శ్రీరామ్ అండి అందరికి. జై శ్రీరామ్ నళిని అవరే.
Jai Shri Ram Sapnavare. You can say Garu, it's not a problem.
Oh, I don't sound it correctly.
No, not like that. Oh, yes,
I'm
you can.
practicing. I'm practicing.
No, not like that. I say. Yeah.
జై శ్రీరామ్ గురువు గారు.
మా జై శ్రీరామ్ జగేష్ అమ్మా, మృణాలి అమ్మా, జై శ్రీరామ్.
Jai Shri Ram Guruvare.
రెడీనామ్మా?
Ready Guruvare. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆಶೀರ್ವಾದ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್.
ಅಯ್ಯೋ ತಪ್ಪದಿರಮ್ಮ, ನೀವು ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಮ್ಮ.
ಈ 1 ಗಂಟೆ ಮುಗಿಬೇಕು ಗುರುವರೇ ಅಷ್ಟೇ.
ಅಯ್ಯೋ ನೋ ಅಮ್ಮ.
జై శ్రీరామ్ గురువు గారు.
1 ಗಂಟೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ సాకాಗೋದಿಲ್ಲಮ್ಮ.
జై శ్రీరామ్ గురువు గారు.
మా జై శ్రీరామ్. జై శ్రీరామ్.
ఆల్ ది బెస్ట్ మినీ.
థ్యాంక్స్ శిరీష. థ్యాంక్ యూ. జై శ్రీరామ్.
జై శ్రీరామ్ భార్గవి అమ్మ.
జై శ్రీరామ్ గురువు గారు.
జై శ్రీరామ్ బాబా.
జై శ్రీరామ్.
జై శ్రీరామ్.
జై శ్రీరామ్ ఐశ్వర్య.
జై శ్రీరామ్ ఐశ్వర్య.
జై శ్రీరామ్.
జై శ్రీరామ్.
జై శ్రీరామ్ గురుగారు.
జై శ్రీరామ్ అమ్మ.
జై శ్రీరామ్ ప్రసాద్ గారు.
జై శ్రీరామ్ అండి. జై శ్రీరామ్ గురువు గారు. జై శ్రీరామ్ గురు.
జై శ్రీరామ్ అండి ప్రసాద్ గారు.
జై శ్రీరామ్ జ్యోతి గారు.
జై శ్రీరామ్ జిగిష గారు. జై శ్రీరామ్ గురు గారు. జై శ్రీరామ్ అండి అందరికి.
జై శ్రీరామ్ జ్యోతిమ్మ.
జై శ్రీరామ్ గురువు గారు.
జై శ్రీరామ్ మీరా గారు.
జై శ్రీరామ్ మీరా గారమ్మ.
జై శ్రీరామ్ గురువు గారు.
జై శ్రీరామ్ రావు గారు.
జై శ్రీరామ్ అండి.
జై శ్రీరామ్ రావు గారు.
జై శ్రీరామ్ గురువు గారు.
ఒక 2 minutes వెయిట్ చేద్దామమ్మా. జగేష్ అమ్మా.
సరే గురుగారు.
ఆ.
ఇది యూట్యూబ్ లో లైవ్ స్టార్ట్ అయింది గురుగారు.
అవునా?
ఉమ్.
మనం స్టార్ట్ చేయొచ్చు అంటారు అట్లయితే.
అంటే యూట్యూబ్ లో చూసే వాళ్ళు చూస్తారు గురుగారు.
ఓకే.
రావు గారు స్టార్ట్ చేయొచ్చా అండి?
ఒక్క నిమిషం అండి. వెబ్సైట్ లో లైవ్ అయ్యిందండి, వాళ్ళు వర్క్ చేస్తున్నారు.
ఓకే ఓకే అండి.
ఒక్క నిమిషం అండి, వెబ్సైట్ వాళ్ళు కాంటాక్ట్ చేశారు, ఒక్క నిమిషం వాళ్ళతో కోఆర్డినేట్ చేసి మీకు చెప్తానండి.
షూర్ అండి.
జై శ్రీరామ్ గురుగారు, మనం స్టార్ట్ చేయొచ్చండి గురుగారు. జగీష్ గారు ప్లీజ్ గో హెడ్ అండ్ స్టార్ట్ అండి.
జై శ్రీరామ్ ఎవ్రీబడి. జై శ్రీరామ్ గురు గారు. Today's Kalpavruksham Atithi is Srimati Mrinalini Garu, and we will go in English because mode of communication for Mrinalini Garu is English. Guru Garu Miro, you can take.
ఆపదామపహర్తారం దాతారం సర్వసంపదాం లోకాభిరామం శ్రీరామం భూయో భూయో నమామ్యహం. మనోజవం మారుతతుల్యవేగం జితేంద్రియం బుద్ధిమతాం వరిష్టం వాతాత్మజం మానరయూధముఖ్యం శ్రీరామదూతం శిరసా నమామి. శ్రీ సీతారామాయ నమః. ప్రార్థనాం సమర్పయామి. పడలేదమ్మా మృణాలు ఎవరే? జై శ్రీరామ్.
Rao Garu.
Yeah. Jai Shriram to everyone. So with the blessings of respected Guru Garu here, I am taking the blessed opportunity to introduce the Atithi, the speaker of this month, to each and everyone. So first of all, really we need to appreciate that Srimati Mrinalini Garu is a part of the 1008 Kalyana Yatra Seva group. So this is the first event where a Seva group volunteer is coming forward to provide this details and take this blessed opportunity in the presence of Guru Garu. So giving a little bit details about Srimati Mrinalini Garu. Mrinalini Garu is wife of Sri Sunil Garu, who keeps life so fun, and she is mother of Chiranjeevi Sharanya and Chiranjeevi Aditya. And Mrinalini Garu also love cats. So in addition to both the kids, she has 2 cats. And somehow they found this family with a lot of love and affection. So she lives in Concord, North Carolina, and very much focused and dedicated to follow the Sanatana Dharma. And Mrinalini Garu loves gardening. And so if you don't find Mrinalini Garu in the home, that is the place where you can see. And she loves mostly the artwork. So in the past, Mrinalini Garu has been the wing coordinator of CRY, which stands for Child Relief and Youth Program in India. And she taught in Montessori Middle School and as well as at the undergraduate level. So currently, Mrinalini Garu is working as a specialist for a banking institution. And more than all above, Mrinalini Garu is very fond of teaching. In addition to that, Mrinalini Garu has been with the Seva group in supporting several articles that is needed for most of the events. And in addition to that, she is also a wonderful point of contact for all Malayalam support activities. Sorry, Kannadam support activities. And in addition to that, Mrinalini Garu also takes care of most of the teaching fond activities. So she herself, she completed Nitya Puja, and recently Mrinalini Garu also completing the Upashikshak program to teach the Nitya Puja. So with all this background, with Guru Garu's blessings, Mrinalini Garu is now in front of us to tell about an interesting topic which most of us will not find it anywhere. So let us take the wonderful opportunity to listen that. Without any further delay, let me invite Mrinalini Garu to give us that opportunity of listening that beautiful topic. Mrinalini Garu, it is all yours now.
Jai Shri Ram, and thank you, Rao Garu, for the very nice introduction. And of course, Guru Aure, always Nima Ashirvadottige, I'll start. Are we good, Jigisha Aure?
Yes, Mrinalini, we are good.
Okay, thank you. So just to begin, always Jai Shri Ram, Om Namah Krishnaya, Sharade, Bhagavati, and Ganapati Namaha. I'd like to, of course, start by saying my thank yous for everything. I think, first of all, thank you to my parents. They've been a big influence in my life, and just by their own example, have shown me how bhakti is, simply in its simplicity, bhakti is all that is needed. So I'm always grateful for them for being such good role models. And also, in addition, especially my father, I think, because growing up for me, it was more stories about Krishna and the Mahabharata. So, both my parents always piqued my curiosity to look beyond just the black and the white. That, in our itihasas, there's always grays and there's complexities. So, to always be curious about that and to kind of fill in the gaps and see how even the villains have shades of goodness in them, and to pay attention to things. Men and my mother-in-law, my grandmothers, and all my aunts who have, just by being role models, who've helped me so much in understanding Sanatana Dharma, or just being practicing religion. And of course, my husband and children, I always want to say thank you to them, because I think they're my biggest cheerleaders. They help me in everything, and they're constantly there. And biggest thanks, I cannot even express it, to Guru Garu. In the very short time that we have known him, our life has become so much more enriched. We've got so much opportunity to learn and understand so many things. So you can't even express how thankful we have to be for that. And Rao Garu and the Seva family, Jigisha Garu, for helping so much with this call. Seva family, of course, you'll have just welcomed me for somebody who doesn't speak or understand Telugu. You welcomed me so nicely, so thank you for that. And of course, as always, all my extended family of friends, some of who are on this call, so thank you for your support all the time. So I'd like to begin this presentation, again, Jai Shri Ram, with this topic being on Ucharana and Artha and how it connects to our identity. Of course, means pronunciation, and Artha is meaning. And with this, the slight focus maybe in this next, especially as immigrants, we need to pay attention to some of these things as it pertains to Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma, and how, as parents, we sometimes need to take an extra step to make sure that our children are grounded in Sanatana Dharma, that they understand, and there's no kind of minimize the scope for misinterpretation or to be swayed by anything. And something to pay attention to, we are all as immigrants know that, we lose a lot of things because here our children do not have the luxury of having grandparents or extended family elders to kind of fill in the gaps of information. So as parents, we sometimes have to, put in some extra efforts to understand and to kind of pass on that knowledge. And before I begin, I just want to, just make it clear that what I'm presenting is, of course, a perspective. It's my personal opinion that I've come to by my own experiences as a parent, as an immigrant, and a teacher. This is certainly not like any kind of peer-reviewed research or anything that I'm presenting. And the purpose is just to kind of encourage conversations around these topics within your own circle of family and friends. And that is what it is. So let's begin. The overall is, of course, Dharmo Rakshita Rakshati Rakshiti Rakshitaha, which means that here, if we protect Dharma, and Dharma here implies broadly the value system, the tradition, which in our case is us as followers of Sanatana Dharma. So how do we protect it? To protect something, we need knowledge of it, right? And only if we know something, then we can either advocate for it or correct something which is said wrongly. So, we have, thanks to Vishnu Chitta Gurukulam and Guru Garu's things, children and, we're learning Nitya Puja, we're doing so many things. So I would just maybe like to extend it a little bit more to say there may be some other aspects we also need to pay attention to. Because as Indians, national, ethnic, and religious identity are very closely intertwined, right? Like you cannot separate it from Sanatana Dharma or our religion. And so, just to pay a little more attention to what it means, particularly to us as immigrants with our children growing up in a place that is a little removed from the place of origin of our culture. So what I'd like to do is, start with the first part, which is Ucharana. And with Ucharana is pronunciation. So pronunciation as in terms of how we say our names, right? So just to give a little bit of background, and you already may be aware of this, with children, there are 3 stages of development. You have the 0 to 6, you have the 6 to 12, and the 12 to 18. So 0 to 6, and as parents, we have all noticed, there's a lot of focus on the self, right? You've seen that if you're doing a chore, like if you are vacuuming, your 2-year-old or 3-year-old wants to imitate you and come right behind you, right? So at this age, you as parents, the child is very focused on the self, completely focused on, and they're absorbing like sponges. So at this point, listening to all the pujas, listening to songs and everything, just directly, it's like a sponge. They absorb everything. So we're building that foundation. Again, with 6 to 12, it increases, their sphere of influence increases a little bit more. I'd like to think of it like concentric circles with the innermost, and then you go to the outermost at 12 to 18, where and this is where my focus is kind of going to be for this presentation, where 12 to 18, they're learning to understand how they relate to the rest of the world. They're trying to understand, they've built their identity, their self-identity and everything, and then they're looking at how to relate to the outer world. And of course, this lines up very beautifully with how our dharma state, how our duties are. You have the Sharirika, where you're taking care of yourself, the Kutumbika, where you're taking care of your family, and the Sangika, where you're looking more at a community-based or the outer world. So when it comes to Ucharana and identity, when you look at this very first stage where that foundation building is happening for this child within their own house, within their own family, you have to pay attention to how their name is pronounced, right? And a name has, we are constantly naming objects. We are naming objects everywhere in our environment, right? A chair is a chair because you've given it that name. But when it's our own name, there's the additional emotional and psychological value that's attached to it. And there are, self-esteem, there's self-respect, all of that is attached to it. So it's very important that a name is pronounced correctly. And this is not, in my experience, nobody has been demeaning or, been insulting or any way with a name. And I think most people want to know how to pronounce a name correctly. But it's also been my experience and my own personal experience where I think, oh no, this name is hard to pronounce. It's okay. It's difficult for you. And you kind of hesitate to correct people when they're saying something wrong. But I think in that foundational stage, it's very important for us as parents, like when you're taking your child into kindergarten or, or elementary school, help people pronounce the name correctly. And when your child sees you doing that, it reinforces, it kind of gives them their own confidence, right? To say it's okay that if they hear somebody saying it incorrectly, they get the confidence then to correct it and to say things for them. So advocate for your child. And in this, in this time where diversity and inclusion are so important, you should not hesitate to be assertive, to say how a name is pronounced. And this is not even for our culture. There are all kinds of cultures where names are different and they're difficult to pronounce. But take the time, first of all, to understand other people's name, pronounce it correctly. But within our own family, to help, our own children navigate and to be assertive about how their names are corrected. And so if I may just give you a small kind of brief about this is, of course, there's a difficulty because Indian languages are very comprehensive. We have, I think, 40 plus letters, including vowels and consonants, and all our sounds are captured with letters. Orthographically, we are able to symbolize these in the form of letters. And we have a constraint because when we come to English, there are 26 alphabets, and even if you look at other ways, it's very difficult to capture all our sounds. And logically, we tend to think, because most in our Indian languages begin with the sound A, and the English language begins with the letter A. So logically and rationally, we equate the two. We say A is A, right? And which is fine. That is what we look at when we're translating. But what happens is when we're looking at the sound, the letter not make the letter A phonetically makes the sound A. So which is where most people, when they see our name and they see the letter A, they make the sound A. So it's up to us to take that little bit of time, an extra step forward to say, at the doctor's office, I always take the time to say, when you see my name, pretend there's the letter U over there. So when they see that, like if you see my name, this is how I always help people, is I break it down. And, my name is very mispronounced. Even growing up in India, it was completely mispronounced. So, it's one of those things where I've had a lot of practice with this. And so when you come to, I break it down to say, think of the first three letters like bri in brick, and instead of b, make the sound m. So you say mri. And then, and this is where, what I was talking about happens. When you say na, think that the letter U is there, like umbrella. for umbrella. So you're hearing the sound mri, na, and then lini is pretty straightforward. And then you put it together and you get Mrinalini. So that seems to help people. And with most of our Indian names, with being so common in all our names, I think that will take care of most names. But please, all you have to do is just look up for phonetic sounds and see how that equates. Like A, the letter E that we use equates to AY, right? So you can say for that, DEV is not Dave, but it is Dave. I hope that helps. So one thing, which is common in our house, because my son's friend is and harsh is not a good sound or a good, when she tells people, please pronounce it with H, pretend there's a U, so the R sound, and it seems to help people a lot. And something, that I cringe when I hear, and I think why it's important is, you hear Dr. Sanjay Gupta on CNN, right? And I'm not judging. I always think, if he had corrected people, our children, when they hear Sanjay Gupta on CNN, they wouldn't be hearing Sanjay Gupta, but they would be hearing Sanjay Gupta as it should be, right? So just these small things, I think, that help our children kind of realize the importance and give them confidence. And again, with being good role models, another example I'd like to share how, as parents, our children need to see us advocating for them, or even just for dharma for us. And I don't know if it's a thing anymore, but when my son was growing up, Japanese anime was a big thing. So, his American friends would come over for sleepovers and they'd watch anime. And with that, the word avatar comes a lot in those shows because, there's a lot of Sanatana Dharma influence in Japan, and they use a lot, the word avatar comes up a lot. And of course, these children, I had to correct it because and then I had to kind of, give them a lesson a little bit on how avatar was actually Indian in origin, it's Sanskrit in origin, and you have to pronounce it avatar. And, of course, after that, they said it correctly and everything. But I think it helped my son because it felt okay that it's okay, just because it's said in a certain way doesn't mean correct. So that is kind of the gist of what I'm trying to get at with why Ucharana is important. And of course, the second part of it is artha, or meaning. And meaning is, we're constantly, as humans, we are constantly making meaning from everything, from verbal and non-verbal communications all around us. And we come to meaning based upon our own experiences, our own biases that we have, and we arrive at interpretations based on that. And for us, it holds a little more significance, and presented correctly. So, just to diverge a little bit and see why meaning is so important, I'd just like to share another personal example related to the word cracker. And this is more with my husband. And it had been about 4 years since we had moved to the US, and then we had moved to North Carolina. And Sunil at that time was working for a company which was, the corporate headquarters was in a very small kind of rural place called Salisbury in North Carolina. So predominantly, white people in the in the workspace, and at that time he was really the only Indian in the workplace, and he had to give a talk on something. He was talking, and there were a lot of all his bosses and everybody was there, and somehow in the conversation the topic of Diwali came up, and he talked about it, and he used the word cracker, right? And he was relating a joke, what he thought would be a joke, and he kept using the word cracker. And nobody laughed or nobody said anything, and he moved on with whatever he had to say. And but that was kind of he was feeling a little embarrassed that nobody laughed at his joke. And during the lunch that followed, he asked one of his colleagues, what happened? Wasn't that funny? Did you what happened? And then he said to Sunil, in the South, the word cracker is used in a derogatory way. It's meant for, it denotes the southern, the white people who were in charge of the slaves. So it's not a very good word. So, we are so used to using the word cracker, and, the word Sunil should have used was fireworks. So kind of, it works both ways, but I'd like to go into how it works for us. Just keep this in mind. Is the example I have, is chai, tea, latte, and I hope this is more relatable to you, right? We walk into Starbucks, and if we want chai, of course there's coffee, but if you want chai, what you see on the menu is chai, tea, latte. And chai is again a word that we take from our culture, right? It originated with chai. We know what chai means. Chai has, tea decoction, sugar, and milk. But so what we're really reading here, how they've misinterpreted or marketing it, is you're really ordering tea, and again tea with milk, right? So that is what comes across. Here's a word that's taken from our culture. And of course, you can't, I don't know that you can fight Starbucks over this or whatever, but the point I'm trying to make is that here is a word from our culture that's taken, and we need to kind of have these conversations with our children, with the people around us. Like I always, at work, always, this comes up because they always want to know, Minnie, do you have a recipe for chai tea? And then I tell them it's not chai tea. You have to say just chai. That is what it is. But even for our children to kind of, within our homes, have these conversations, because we may notice it, but we may not be conveying that to our children. And that is super important. And another word that, has always bothered me is the word South Asian. And, South Asian is a word that's okay if you're using it to describe a geographical location, or even demographically on a census if you're entering something, or if you're talking about a culture. But we should be careful to not equate the word South Asian with Indian American. Because if you do that, what's happening when it's used in that way, and again, I just want to throw in a caveat here that for the purposes of this presentation, we're making the assumption that all these words are used, from a place of ignorance and not intentionally. So when we look at this word South Asian, and if it's equated with Indian American, what happens is then that identity of that person who is of Indian American origin is negated, because I am an Indian American. I am not. And then maybe if you want to look at the broader region, yes, of course, we're from the broader region of South Asia, but my ethnicity, my nationality is Indian American. So that is again something we want to pay attention to not equate the two or conflate the two, and to make our children aware of that also. And again, there are some examples that I've picked up where our children, especially growing up here with the books they read, or papers they read, and what is in the media, to pay attention to that and have these conversations around it. So one of the words that's used a lot when let me just give you a brief understanding of what colonial lens means. So the colonial lens or the Western gaze is is used for when an outside culture comes in, studies a native culture, interprets it according to their own, interpretation, and then presents that. And because that culture, the outside culture, is considered superior, importance is given to that, right? So again, here we have to again assume, there's a limitation because our languages are so comprehensive and so full of meaning. Again, English, just like the English alphabet, doesn't do complete justice to the meaning. So it's very hard sometimes to find equal words. But even having said that, there is definitely a way in which meanings are interpreted, and we need to pay attention to that. So one of the examples is the word mythology. And the word mythology is used to describe our, like our itihasas, like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And that is really an incorrect word, and we shouldn't be using that, because the Ramayana and the Mahabharata are part of our cultural history. And when you look at the word itihasa, it means something which has happened. And there's enough, geographical evidence, astrological evidence, and even, architectural evidence to show us that these events have happened. They are historical. So when we use the word myth, we are kind of equating it with the, Greek Iliad and Odyssey, which may have happened, may not have happened. We don't know that. So we need to pay attention to that word that we're using called mythology. And the correct word, history doesn't really capture it, but history would be a closer correct representation for itihasas. Another word that's used a lot, especially, and it can be used derogatorily, usually, is that, Sanatana Dharma, we are a very patriarchal society that, and again, we may not have all the answers, but what I want to encourage, especially younger children and parents, is do your research and look and find, evidence to say why this is not true. And if you look at it, we've had Rishikas, we've had Gargi, we've had Lopamudra. I think there are about 17 women who have been given the status of Rishikas, who were there, who have contributed to the Vedas. So if we are a patriarchal society, how would that have been possible? Again, another example I'd like to share is, again, from my personal experience, is when I first started working, and that very first year, I was writing out invitations for parents in my class to come in for, I think it was a graduation ceremony or something. And I was handwriting the invitations, and I was writing them as Mrs. and Mr. And this had just, I just started kind of going out into the world in the US. And then my coworker corrected me, and she said it should be Mr. and Mrs. But here is one of the things that, growing up in India, that you naturally imbibe, because for us, we always address it as Srimati and Shriman, right? Whenever we're giving out invitations and things. So, the woman is given so much importance. Even our gods, the names are Sita Rama, Lakshmi Narayana. So that kind of contradicts, if you are a patriarchal society, how does that happen? And of course, there are innumerable examples. Like Guru Garu talks about Prakriti and Purusha, you need both to balance everything. It's not one, and they're both equal. And there are many, if you dig in, there are plenty of examples that show you, like even from our marriage customs, that show you how women are given importance, equal importance. Of course, whether due to cultural influence over the years, if things have changed, that's a different conversation. But at its core, women are given a lot of importance. So we need to be careful about using the word patriarchal. Again, all these words that are used, again, going back to the artha, and getting the meaning, and to make sure that, you know, we're not just using English words just to kind of continue and perpetuate the same narratives, is something that's used a lot, is to say that we are superstitious and regressive. And again, please, you know, kind of do your research, find evidence. And for me, another personal story is, one of the things that's written a lot about in the media is, you know, they talk about how we are regressive to women, we're superstitious. Women, especially during their menstrual periods, are treated very, you know, there's a lot of wrong done to them. And I'd like to share a very personal story here. And this is about my about my grandmother. And, you know, so she was, you know, when she was a young bride, and she was in a in a joint family in our ancestral home in Mangalore. And I remember her telling me how, you know, during the periods when for the 5 days, the women took care of each other, right? There was a special place for them, and you know, they took care of each other, made sure there were special foods that they had during that time that they were given. And she said it was such a blessing, because during those 5 days I didn't have to do any of the chores. And if you think about it, you know, at that time they had to draw water from the well. There was a lot of physical aspects to their daily life that we don't have. And, you know, she said that those 5 days, we kind of almost look forward to it, because it was a break for us. We got some time to focus on ourselves and to, you know, kind of rejuvenate. And these are the things that, you know, we need to kind of convey to our children, and it's not regressive. And even from a very common sense point of view, practically, if you look at just the sanitary aspect, it makes complete sense. And I would definitely encourage you to please look up Sinu Joseph and her talks on TED Talks or YouTube. I think she has a lot of talks where she really goes into this topic a lot, and she provides a lot of information about Ayurveda and the reasons for all of this. Another word that's used again is that, you know, and this is sometimes used derogatorily, is that we are polytheistic. You know, you hear people saying, oh yes, you all have a million gods, right? And to again go back and educate ourselves and to understand and convey to our children when they hear these words, that is that, you know, true, because like Guru Garu says, you know, we have one God. God is there in different forms. And even within Sanatana Dharma, what a beautiful concept we have, where, you know, you can have your Rishta Daivata, you can approach God how you want to approach God. So that is something that's so beautiful. And again, something that's said is we are intolerant. And again, just to make sure that, you know, we're not missing, that our children don't miss out these stories, something important to convey, because we know it, but our children, you know, we may not take the time to pass it on to our children, is how, you know, India has given refuge to the Dalai Lama. There's a whole region where of India where the Indian government has no jurisdiction over this region where the Dalai Lama and his followers live. It's close to Mysore, I believe. And, you know, over the centuries, India has given protection and refuge to Jews. We have Parsis, the Zoroastrians. And this is only possible because Sanatana Dharma is not intolerant, it's inclusive. We include and we welcome and we respect all, you know, beliefs and how people want to believe. And we let them believe that however they want. Again, another small story that, you know, just to pay attention to the fact that we're not losing or missing gaps for our children because they're growing up here, and, you know, there so many things they miss out, is another story. One of our temples in Mangalore is right next to the beach, and it's on a little hill. right next to the beach. And I spent, a lot of summer holidays, you go to visit your grandparents. We've spent a lot of time going to that temple. But I hadn't, or maybe somebody had told this and I hadn't paid attention, just being young. But on one of our trips to India with our children, my father, we had gone to that temple. And I think it was so important that, my father pointed out, and my children were very young at that time. He just pointed out very casually to my children. He said, do you realize that, the well or the Pushkarani on that temple, it's at a little, it's definitely on a hill. And he asked them, do you see we're right next to the sea, we're right next to the beach, and this temple is on the hill. But do you see how the fresh water for Swami's Pacharanas, everything is right here? How is that fresh water come up this height and it's available here? Whereas, in quite a few of the wells, even at ground level, including our ancestral homes, sometimes during the summer, getting hot water is, getting fresh well water is a problem. So, these stories, we have to kind of pay attention and as immigrants, just take that extra step to kind of convey that to our children, because it helps them kind of ground and strengthen that, when we earlier talked about that foundation, it strengthens that foundation and gives them, in addition to all our practices and songs and everything that they're learning, when they're looking into how they're fitting into society, this helps them. It gives them a little bit more confidence and a little bit more ground to stand on when, if they're faced with something else. And of course, this next topic, we can go on more and more, but I just picked up a few examples, is to look at cultural appropriation where, concepts from our dharma are taken and kind of misrepresented, right? And you all may be aware right now, of course, the swastika is something which is, there's a lot of controversy going on. So it's, for us within our house, we need to have that conversation about how the swastika in our dharma is very different from the swastika that's associated with the Nazis or the, regimes of oppression. That's a conversation that, we need to have and to make our children aware of that. And another word that kind of tends to be used flippantly is the word Juggernaut. And we need to make our children aware that the word Juggernaut actually is an anglicized word of the word Jagannath. And that, when the Britishers were in India, they were so, the immensity of Jagannath Swami was there, and they kind of anglicized it and they made the word Juggernaut, and it's used now to describe anything that's very immense. But just to make our children aware that this is where the origin of the word comes from. And of course, in almost common usage, we see all these words that are used and which may not always be used correctly. But again, to make our children aware that, they are using these words correctly and they're not perpetuating the same narratives. It's, words like mantra and Brahmin and Guru. And again, if you look very recently, I think the last couple of weeks, yoga, you can just go on, right? There's so many, it's a topic in itself where you can go on. But very recently is the state of Alabama just lifted a ban on the practicing of yoga in public schools, the practicing or teaching of yoga in public schools. But they want to do it without using the word namaste or without any kind of reference to its Hindu origins. So again, have these conversations with your children to say how, what yoga is, what are the aspects of yoga. And, if you don't know, we need to do the research to educate ourselves about it. And also, kind of have that ongoing conversation. And something that again came up for me is the word mandala. And this came up because, when I was in graduate school, one of my classmates presented a paper on mandalas, and she was talking about mandalas and the Tibetan monks and how, you know, they have this whole concept. They do this big kind of, you know, rangoli, and then, you know, they wipe it off within a day. And you've seen this even on like a lot of American shows that, you know, this keeps coming up. But then I was trying to say how mandalas are actually, they originate from Rangoli, right? How we do our columns or rangolis. And there really isn't a lot of, when you look at it, and this may be the struggle for us and even for our children as they go out into colleges, is there's a real paucity of peer-reviewed papers that are written by authentic kind of dharmic voices, where you can find kind of sources of information that will tell you that, you know, the mandala and the rangolis are kind of connected. And this is something, you know, I just wanted to point out. And again, something that our children and even, you know, we need to be aware about is how the Ramayana and Sanatana Dharma are so spread in the world, that it's spread to so many corners of the world. Of course, within our own, you know, close to India, the countries which are close to India, you can assume, yes, it's spread very easily, like Sri Lanka and all of that. But when you look at even faraway cities, faraway countries like Japan has a lot of dharmic influence. Even in China, this was something new to me. I didn't know. Is there are Jataka tales, and there are stories about a monkey king very similar to Sri Hanuman. And the very first picture, this first picture is of two dancers from Thailand who are you know, enacting the Ramayana. And in Thailand, even now, the present king's name, they have the tradition where the king's name begins with the word Rama. So Rama is how the king's name is prefixed with Rama before going into the actual name. And the middle picture is of the Ramayana from Cambodia. And this very last picture is from Japan. And it is their depiction of King Indira, of Lord Indira. And you'll see, you know, he's riding the elephant Airavit. And so our Dharma has spread and to so many places. And you know, as people who follow that Dharma, you know, we need to make sure that this information passes on, and, you know, it's preserved over so many centuries, and to make sure that it continues on to the next generation. And so coming full circle back, I just want to come back again to how important our pronunciation and artha and meaning is, that we understand it and we make sure we pass it on to the next generation. Because, you know, if the word Rama is mispronounced and it's said Rama, then it becomes, you know, a girl's name. And Guru Garu gave us this whole beautiful explanation about how, you know, Lord Rama's name came about and the meaning behind it. So if we pronounce it Rama, then that whole significance and importance is lost. So to kind of pay attention to that. And for children on this call, I would say, or even adults, I would say, please be curious, ask the questions, research, you know, have conversations, have discussions, and be cognizant and aware of misinterpretations and misrepresentations of our culture, of our Dharma. Educate yourself and educate those around you. And again, this example I'm going to share is nothing to do with Dharma, but another thing that's kind of something that I don't really like is, and it's misrepresented so much everywhere, even on like shows on TV, is the word spicy that's used with Indian food, right? And with educating those around you, I always invite our American friends, I cook them food, and, you know, and even for us to pay attention to not use that word, right? Like you can use the word flavorful, you could use the word aromatic, you could use so many other words, but when the word spicy is used, it's usually used in a kind of not in a nice, pleasant way. So is our food really spicy is something we need to ask ourselves, right? There may be certain foods that are spicy, there may be certain regions of India where foods are spicier or have more heat, but overall, is our food spicy? Because our foods are based on Ayurveda, and we look at all the balance of all the tastes, right? Sourness, sweetness, heat is definitely there. We need saltiness, and we also need bitterness. So that is, our cuisine is based around all of that. So when in shows and things, if you watch Gilmore Girls, there is always there's jokes around Indian food. So just to educate those around you, if you can, share your culture. And then we are very, very lucky to be born to this very unique, very wise, scientific, and of course very ancient dharmic tradition. So be strengthen that, and more importantly, as far as possible, don't perpetuate these incorrect narratives, because the more we use these words and we continue using those words, then we're passing it on. So kind of stop and pay attention, take a step back and see if there's another alternate word that I can use, or something else that would better convey the meaning. And, of course, I just want to finish with by saying, of course, for us, there is no better example than the Ramayana and Lord Rama, because as he's described as Dharmagnya, somebody who keeps, upholds and protects tradition and Dharma. And within the Ramayana, of course, you see all of them do it, right? Like, Sita Devi does the same. She follows her dharma. Lakshmana follows his dharma as a brother. So we have such wonderful examples within the Ramayana itself for us, and to use that. And I'd also like to kind of point you a little bit towards maybe some Twitter handles you can follow. The Hindu American Coalition, there's Kohana, which is Kohna, and lots of scholarly people who post very relevant dharmic topics, like Dr. Indu Vishwanath, Dr. Shini Ambedkar. So, with social media, there's a lot of information that's out there that you can do your own research and base, come to conclusions or have conversations around. So that's all I have. And I'd like to end by saying this quote from the Rig Veda, which is, "May noble thoughts come to us from every direction, unchanged, unhindered, undefeated in every way. And Asatoma Satkamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritangamaya." Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you, Guru Ore. Jai Shri Ram. Thank you. I'd just like to see if anybody has comments or questions. Thank you for your time.
Jai Shri Ram, Nunali Garu. This was a wonderful topic, very, very relatable topic. As you have mentioned, my name was mispronounced all through while I was growing up. So it really connects to what you've said. And raising kids here, their friends coming here, pretty much everything you've said is what I'm experiencing. So wonderful topic, very well done. Guru Garu.
ತುಂಬಾ ಸಂತೋಷಮ್ಮ, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ವಿಚಾರ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಮ್ಮ ಇವತ್ತು. ಎಕ್ಸಲೆಂಟ್ ಅಮ್ಮ. We should be aware of all the things what's are going on, some misinterpretations about our dharma, and we should make our kids to understand some what is our dharma. So ತುಂಬಾ ಎಕ್ಸಲೆಂಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ತುಂಬಾ ಬೆನಿಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಮ್ಮ, ತುಂಬಾ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ, ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಂದ ದೊಡ್ಡವರವರೆಗೂ ಅಮ್ಮ. Thank you so much, Amma.
Jai Shri Ram Guru.
The Lord Sita Ram Chandra Swami bless you all your life, Amma. Om Tamangaleriam Madhurimagam Tapeta Pashyata Saubhagyamatpe Datta Yatastam Viparetanam Anagotam Patyoho Kumara Kumaryaha Bata Pituhu Bhadracharat Tita Ramachandaswa Paripurna Kupakatakshari Dirastu.
Thank you.
Ram Garu.
Jai Shri Ram Guru Garu. So very nice. So most of the time we hear when Mrinalini Garu talks about any topic, she used to even teach Kannada for the Seva group. But today we have also learned about this interesting topic of what is the importance of how to pronounce the name. So with that, now let us take few questions, Andi Jigisha Garu, from the audience to see if they have any questions to Mrinalini Garu, and then we will come back to the topic of next month. So Jigisha Garu, please coordinate if anybody wants to ask any question.
Sure, Andy. Sirisha Garu?
Jai Shri Ram, everyone. This is not exactly question. Like I can definitely correlate like how it is. Like there is always repeated conversation. Like my son's friend's name is Ram Sai, and he called. I correct him like you need to call him as Ram Sai, but he says that no, he himself wants me to call him as Ram Sai. So. Okay, he likes to be called like that, but I want you to call him correctly. But I feel that, okay, he will try to do that in front of me, but I see that outside because his friend is comfortable with Ram Sai, he wants to call him as Ram Sai. That's what it is like. These things somewhere I feel like, okay, I feel inside like, when can we correct this? Like how to do this?
Yeah, thank you, Sirisha. Yes, and that is kind of what I was saying, how, the colonial lens or what is given superiority, right? So even though it is our own thing, but we give somebody else, and it is not done with a bad intention, but then if we kind of subdue our own selves and we accept that that is superior, then that is what happens. And that is kind of something that, we need to pay attention to. But if that child, whoever that child was, empowered right in the beginning to kind of correct it, or the parents kind of were empowered to correct it, to know that this is ours, we need to say it correctly, is, hopefully it's not too late. I think anytime you can always go back and do it.
Aishwarya, you had a question, Anna?
Yeah.
I don't have a question, Jai Shri Ram. Auntie, you did a very, very good job with your presentation. I really liked it.
Oh, thank you, Aishwarya. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Auntie.
It's very relatable to what our kids face, and it's in such a simple language that I think all kids will definitely understand what you said. Any other questions, Andy? Anybody has questions? Padma Garu?
Jai Shri Ram Mrinalini avre. I was really impressed, Ma, because I had this personal experience because I deal with kids a lot, and I live in Kentucky, and mostly in Kentucky, it's we have a different culture. So when I have my bindi, and I make sure that I wear this, especially the long one. The only reason being, if you can accept somebody with a hijab, if you can accept somebody with something else that they're tattooing or something else, why can't you accept a bindi? So that's my motivation behind that. And also, when somebody says there is blood on my forehead, I try and I used to take it very personally and very offensive initially, but then I started talking to the kids because they're coming from ignorance. What they hear from their parents is what they're projecting onto us. So that's where I come from. And I really appreciate that, Ma. And when I came to this country, I came at a very young age. So when I heard my name, my full name is Padmasani. Okay, they butchered it quite a bit. So then I shortened it to Padma. And even that Padma became Padma. Okay, so when I heard Padma, I heard it so many times. So I got used to it. As you said, I was very submissive and I was trying to fit into this culture when I was a student. So that's where I was motivated to. And when one of my professors, he pointed out and he said, your name is Padma. He asked me what my name was, and I said Padma. And when he himself, he's a white American, he went to India, he studied under our Vedic culture and literature, and he is a psychologist by profession, and he was in India for about 20 years. And he came back and he told me, the meaning of your name is so beautiful. Why do you want to butcher that? That's when I realized how much I was trying to fit in or navigate. So those are the two things that stood out for me. And the other thing was polytheistic, is something that I try to explain the kids that tell me that it is polytheistic, is just giving my own example. I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, I am so-and-so when I'm working. So I'm a friend. So all these are different aspects of who I am. I'm only one. So that's how I give example for polytheistic. So that's something that we have to be repeatedly need to tell our kids that it is not ridiculous. It is not something that is up there or mythological or created. It's not a cock and bull story. So it's something that you need to be like grounded in your own dharma. You need to honestly embrace that dharma before you can answer your kids. That's something that I've learned over the years. So thank you so much, Ma.
Thank you, Padma. Very true. And the one about the blood, even I had, because I used to not put it here. I used to put it up here on my forehead, just to have like a professional experience, appearance when I used to teach and everything. And but yes, I've had children who asked me that, and I've had to explain that. I very simply say it's just from my daily prayers. And, also what got me interested in this topic was when I was in grad school is I had this really lovely professor, and it was a rhetoric class. And her research was analyzing presidential speeches and its effect on social media. So that, and then I started digging in to see what is happening in social media about Indian topics. And it just kind of opened it wide for me, because I saw, the Kashmiri genocide happened. And it happened while I was, I think, still in India at that time. But there was no kind of articles on that here or information about that here. And that kind of spurred me. And then that took me to different places. And then I started realizing, and like South Asian was a topic that was really where it's still under kind of debate in our house, but we've debated that a lot. So that's all it is like, for people listening in, just have those conversations, educate yourself and have those conversations.
Swapna Garu?
Yeah, Jai Shri Ram, Mridalini Averi. It was very nice, nice presentation day, and I mean, especially that Ucharana and the meaning behind how it goes in along with the pronunciation was awesome. I mean, when before Shriyan was born, we picked few names and we used to run behind our American colleagues and ask them to pronounce it. So we actually picked the ones that they were able to pronounce it properly, because we didn't want them to say something wrong. But we didn't know that it had so much of purpose and meaning behind that pronunciation. Thanks for bringing that enlightenment, Mrinalini garu. Thank you.
Jai Shri Ram. Swapnali.
Shireen garu.
Mrinalini garu, I totally relate, Andy, and I totally agree with Padma garu. And I was about to bring what Swapna garu was about to say about the naming and all that, and very good research, Andy, and that's it, Andy. But I was able to relate and come back to the. I mean, I could relate to what I was talking in my work about the chain we wear or about the bottu we put. I still do that for myself and for my satisfaction. But there are so many discussions we had about yoga. All that, but this is a very good topic, and I encourage my son also to follow Sanatana Dharma, however much I can do, and he also, I mean, kind of follows, which is what I feel I'm blessed. And following Guru Garu is also one big hint for him. So thank you so much, Andy. Thank you so much for all this discussion.
Thank you, Shireen.
Thank you.
Sunita garu.
Mrinalini garu, Jai Shri Ram andi. It is actually a wonderful topic, and your research and knowledge is amazing. It's a very rare topic to hear from people, definitely. I can relate everything, and because when we go to work, we face all these things, and kids face at their school. This is all reality, and you're giving us solutions on how we can, especially your approach of splitting the name and relating them to the pronunciation that they use is really nice. And we never had that thought to want to implement it. And yeah, and the Sanatana Dharma that you have explained everything, why we wear. Yes, I echo with Shireen garu, because we discuss a lot about this work, and I see myself and some of family or extended family, when they go to work, they don't want to wear bottu, because they say, when you are in Rome, be a Roman. Right. So I think that is definitely not the case, which everybody is trying to do slowly. Thank you, and thank you for this topic.
Bhargavi garu.
Jai Shri Ram, Mrinalini garu, thank you very much for talking on this topic, Andy, because it very much relates to me, and it's still being butchered my name every time they call me up. So I started saying, instead of calling with my name, I would say, call me as Mrs. Siva. I always tell my husband's name, call me with my husband's first name, because that would be much more easy rather than, killing that name, because that name belongs to Goddess Lakshmi Devi. So I really don't want that, people mispronouncing it, and I really feel very bad personally. So I keep telling, no, call me Mrs. Siva. That is much more easy, and at least I'm giving some kind of respect to my name by not making people mispronounce it, Andy. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Andy. It was a very nice topic to discuss. Jai Shri Ram, Andy.
Any other questions, Jyoti garu?
Jai Shri Ram, Mrinalini garu. It is really good presentation, Andy. My question is, it may be or may not be related to the topic. I don't know. And as you explained about parenting and dealing with some of the issues, then I thought that I can ask this question to you. Recently, my daughter, she has an assignment. So for that, she has to read a book. It is a historical fiction novel. And she chose a book related to Ramayana, that is Eon of Ishvaku dynasty. And in that book, the story is little different than what is our Itihasa. Then I told her, just simply email the teacher that you don't want to write on this book and I want to change the book. And she said, my daughter said that it is already time is over, Amma, and my grades will affect, and I do not have enough time to read another book, like that she is saying. And she also said that even I don't want to write about this book, but she already inquired about other friends, and who already read some of the books on Christianity, like on Jesus, some historical fiction books. So she asked them, did you write about those books? Yeah, we wrote about those books because it is historical fiction. It is fiction already given on the book, it is fiction. So what is wrong in writing about this book, she is saying. Because she also did not want to write, but she inquired her friends, and so everybody wrote. So what is wrong in writing about this book, she is saying. So I'm saying that you can write the review on this book. Do not write what is there in the on that book. She's saying it is not about review, Amma. We have to write about this book, she is saying. So I do not know how to deal with this one. And my daughter, she knows the Ramayana, and she's saying what is wrong, and which places they wrote it wrong also she is saying. But she's saying that I do not have another choice, she's saying.
Yeah, I think this is by Amish Tripathi, right? I think the author of that book is Amish Tripathi, and
I do not remember.
it is either that or Devdutt Patnaik, I think, but I think it's Amish Tripathi, and there's actually been a lot of controversy about that particular book, The Science of Ishwaku. But if I may suggest, maybe your daughter can actually do like a critique of the book, present, where she has other evidence to show that this is the evidence of what actually happened. I think and I defer to Guru Garu with this. Of course, we have so many versions of Ramayana, and I think it's becoming a little bit of a fad where people are writing their own versions of it. So there are very good other versions. I understand it may be late for her to change the book she's chosen, but maybe she can ground her whatever she's writing about with the facts that she already knows. She can say this is what actually happened, and the author is choosing to present it like this, if that makes sense.
Any other questions, Sanjay? Okay. I'll take a quick second to just talk about my thoughts when I heard about your presentation, Mrinalini Garu. It's both ways, I think. It's not just people mispronouncing here. In India also, they really, Ucharana is very important. While growing up, my name Jigisha was, so many people call me Jagdish. I grew up being called Jagdish, and it was not fun at all. It was, it is my identity, right? So I completely understand that explaining people what your name is and what it means. Once I gave them the meaning, a lot of people made the effort to correct the name. And to your point about spicy food also, it's very, very relatable here. At my work, I've actually cooked food and they were like, it's not spicy at all. And so educating people is very, very important in what you believe. So everything you've said is something I try to teach my kids. We always encourage them to bring their friends home and try what we eat. And I've invariably seen that they come back saying, Mrs. Reddy, can we have more of your palau? And it is very interesting how the kids adapt when you educate them and actually enable them to embrace it. So very wonderful topic, Mrinalini Garu. Garu, the questions and comments are done, Andy.
Jai Shri Ram, Andy. Jai Shri Ram. So with that, I believe there is an echo. So all good questions, good feedback, good topic. And this topic cannot be found in any book or in any audio. So that's why This Kalpavruksham topics are very rare. So we need to spread this information. And one last thing is, every month there is only one opportunity, and it is now already lined up until June. So now, at the same time, with the Guru Garu's blessings, if anybody is really interested to be an Atithi, there is always opportunity whenever the option comes in. The first come, first serve basis, it will be kept on allocating. So if any one of the devotees on this call are interested, or if you think of anyone that you want to invite, because this is open for everyone. This is not that they need to be a Nitya Puja student, or this is not for the devotee has to be a Kalyana Yatra devotee. So there is no such kind of thing. So if you can think of anyone, please have them submit their interest through Contact Seva page on the website. All they have to say is, I am interested to be an Atithi speaker for the next upcoming Kalpavruksham. So, and definitely each and everyone in this group who are listening today, they all might have some topic to tell. That is the motivation of how Mrinalini Garu came up. So Mrinalini Garu was thinking about herself, saying that, can I present this? So one day when she was fortunately or by mistake called me, I told Mrinalini Garu, you can do this. Take Guru Garu blessings and keep moving forward. And today I'm very happy to see Mrinalini Garu sharing that kind of knowledge with all of us, which even is more important for all of us to take some time to think about it and use that. So Mrinalini Garu, once again, appreciate for taking care of that conversation and moving it forward and motivating several of us on this call, which is one of the wonderful thing that we all got it. And so with that, kindly make sure if anyone is really interested, please submit through Contact Seva, or please also promote this opportunity to others with your friends, family friends, or with your family members, anybody who might be interested to do this. With that, let us take Guru Garu's blessings and have the closing prayer. And Jikisha Garu.
Sure, Rao Garu. Om Swasti Praja Paripalayantam Nyagena Margena Mahim Mahishaha Gobrahmanebhya Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sabbe Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu Samasta Sanmangalani Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. మంచిదండి అందరికి జై శ్రీరామ్. జై శ్రీరామ్.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram, Guru Garu.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram, Guru Garu.
It's a great topic, Andi.
Jai Shri Ram. Thank you, Mrinalini Garu.
Thank you, Andi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
She ended the call.
Thank you, Jigishari.
Jai Shri Ram.